Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Dan Pipitone. He's the co-founder of TradeZero America. We're going to take a look at market conditions and trends that have created opportunities for investors and traders. Dan, it's great to have you with me on Trade Talks. Thank you so much for joining in what's been clearly unprecedented times in the markets, especially for as long as you and I have been doing this. What we've seen with volatility and the massive swings has really driven a lot of attention to these markets.
Yes, it has. First, thanks for having me. So as I was mentioning just a few minutes ago, when this all started in the beginning of March, I really did not think in my wildest dreams that there would be this much attention to trading, to the markets, to all things financial related when all of the stuff is going on outside of our doors. But to your point, we have been super surprised on the level of increase in volume, attention, and activity that we've experienced at our firm, TradeZero America. It's been semi-refreshing in the fact that we're able to maintain some sense of normalcy in what it is we do day to day and provide the type of service that people can rely on in these uncertain times.
Yeah, Dan, it's quite incredible. I mean, if we would have went through lockdown, working from home, and even 2008, 2009, I guess the most comparable thing to an economic crisis that you could with COVID-19, we would not be able to do our jobs without the technology that exists today.
That's 100% true. And it's interesting to see in today's day and age, in the new normal, a lot of these, winners and losers and sectors and new dynamics for investing. We were coming off of the longest bull market in history where, even the best investors were telling the average investor, stick to indices and stick to broad baskets, where now, in this new normal, it's really become a stock picker's market. And it's really driven the need for investors to do their research, do their homework, and pick those companies that are able to excel during these times. The drivers of that remote technology being, a sweet spot for sure.
And the extreme volatility has also created opportunities for not only longer term investors, but certainly for traders on both the long and short side. And after going through a market of a couple of years where there was nothing but an upward trend, that certainly has been welcome to have that volatility to pick those spots.
It has. And it really, that volatility we feel is obviously driven the increased attention to the markets. Investors believe, and rightly so in many cases, that they're, when the markets dropped very much in the beginning of March and middle of March, they definitely created some value in a lot of names. But yeah, it's been a wild ride and something that we expect to continue until the point where there's some clarity on treatment and a vaccine. But to your point on the short side, the volatility for us as a firm, trading and offering the ability to trade on the short side is one of our sweet spots as a firm. And the volatility has really created a lot of opportunity for bi-directional trading. And it's important for investors to realize that there is a way for them to capitalize on trading on stocks on the downside using shorting. And at TradeZero, we specialize in broadening and ensuring that the stocks that a user would want to short, we would potentially have.
And you're also seeing with demographics as well. Millennials, this is their first time they've ever gone through a major market correction. They probably, in some cases, were probably too young to have traded 2009. So this is the first time you have a generation of traders, and you're seeing that they're actually more open to shorting stocks. It's apparent that when you're sitting there and your only option is to go long, and there really aren't many good options when the markets are doing the dance that they did in the beginning of March on through now, it's important that I think that a lot of millennials have stumbled upon the ability to capitalize when things are going on the downside. As a firm, while we've seen big increases in trading volume, about 150% since the beginning of the year, the short volume is up over 200%. So people are really, and millennials especially, are really starting to interact with the markets, in both directions. Yeah, and
going back to short selling, sometimes you hear that mantra, oh, it's un-American to short sell, but there really is a function in the market for that. So help us dispel that myth.
Sure. So, it's funny. Some of our competitors liken short selling to borrowing money from a loan shark and then going down to the track and gamble, where in our opinion, it's doing the investor a disservice. It is a valid tool. It is a tool that is used by every institution out there because it gives them the flexibility to roll with the markets. So I think that it's important to understand the risks. Obviously, there are high carrying costs with holding shorts overnight potentially, and there is also the risk of unlimited loss. But once you're comfortable with those risks, it's a valid and viable strategy that, if used properly, will lead to a more effective navigation of our markets today.
And looking forward beyond COVID-19, do you expect that we'll see volatility longer term? Do you think once the light switch goes back on and we're allowed to leave our houses, that the demand is going to go back to where it was before? I think it's going to be a slow, deliberate, gradual process, and this could be a little bit more longer term than just a short-term event.
I do think so. And, we do have a bunch of other, political and geopolitical events happening.
Mm-hmm.
You have the election towards the end of the year. You have the back and forth with China, the trade deal that's being negotiated right now with the UK. So it's going to be interesting to see how these things flush out. And I agree with you. I don't think that we're in this for a V shape. I think if anything, it's going to be a longer U. But I think that we're going to be dealing with this for quite some time in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, a longer U with a little bit of W's in between. All right.
Right.
All right, Dan. Thank you so much for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thanks for having me.
All right, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.